Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm going to tie an emerger pattern for you today. It's been a while since I've done a video. Had a lot on lately. We've been doing a lot of customer orders, obviously mayflies coming up. So I've been busy tying lots of mayflies for people. I've also had some trips away with work over in Germany. I was tying at the Munich Fly Fair as well with RaidZap, which was a fantastic fair. I'll be tying over in Ireland again later this year. I've got the invite for that, so looking forward to getting back to the Killyhevlin and tying at the Irish Fly Fair, so thank you for the invite. So yeah, onto the fly. So this is a fly that I use for a lot of different hatches. Tie 12s, 14s, 16s. This is on a K14A. When I drop down to an 18s or a 20, I'd actually put it on a SLD2, which is just a normal standard dry fly hook. Just find it's a little bit more robust in the smaller size, especially if you're on those big trout. So it'll work for, you know, blue-winged olives, large darks, olive upwings, March browns in the bigger sizes as well. So great versatile pattern, definitely one you want to get in the box. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into it. So in the vise we've got Partridge K14A. First thing I'm going to do is come in with the trico, the uni thread. I'm going to put a little bit of wax on it. I'm going to whip that in, just behind the eye, and then cut off our tag. And then the next thing I'm going to come in with is some Mirage opal tinsel in small. I'm going to catch that, lift it up behind the thread, and then I'm going to wind this down right into the bend. So I'm going to come right in, and the reason I use this thread first is that I don't want to change the colour of the actual tinsel. If I was to do it in olive, I would then potentially change the colour of this. So I'm just going to tie that back up, and then I'm going to, in touching turns, wrap this up the shank, I only want quite a thin pearl section, so I'm just going to touching turns up to about there, and back that off, and then catch that in, and then I'm going to wrap both of these back up towards the eye. So that just helps keep a slim body with no bumps. So just cut off at butt ends, come back up, and then we're just going to finish this out. We can get rid of that thread now. So cut that away. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some sheer 40-0 in brown. Again, I'm going to apply some fly tying wax to my thread, and I'm going to catch this in behind the eye and come down. So cut off a waist. Now what you want to do, just to give a bit of extra security to this tinsel, is just put a little bit of UV. You could put some glue underneath if you wanted, but I like to use the UV. So this is a thin UV resin that I'm using. So you don't want a lot, just a really small amount, just to give you some extra security. So it just gives that a light coating, just to make sure if any of those trout catch it, it doesn't come undone on you. So just make sure you've no lumps of the resin, like so, and then just wrap that with your UV torch. Make sure it's all nicely cured. And then the next thing we're going to do is come in with some CDC. So I'm going to stack these feathers all on top of each other, making sure all the tips are nicely lined up. So I'm coming to the end of this CDC. So I've not got the best of feathers. So I'm going to probably use 4 on this one just to make sure it floats well. So if you had some really good CDC or big feathers, you'd probably get away with 3 on a 16. So I'm going to make sure all those tips are nicely lined up. I'm going to measure against the shank. So I want a hook length. And I'm going to tie that in with a pinching turn, a pinching wrap, should I say, and make sure it's all nice and tight. And then I'm going to pull my butts up and I'm going to cut these on a slight taper, which will also help me with the taper that I want of the fly. So I'm going to tie down. So I'm going to counterspin my thread just to flatten it, just to help me with this next section. So then we've got a golden olive strip quill. So I've moistened this slightly, just so that when I wrap it, it hopefully doesn't crack on me. So I'm going to catch that in almost under the shank, because that'll just help with my first couple of wraps. I'm going to tie down to where I've got just enough of the butt that I want to be on show. Counterspin my thread to flatten it, and then I'm just going to build a taper now back up to that, towards that eye. So I can see I've got a slight bump there, so I'm just going to level all this out, all the while counterspinning my thread just to flatten. This really helps get a nice neat body. So we're almost there now, so I'm just going to finish this little bit off. Got a slight bump there, so level that, come back up to behind that feather, and then I'm going to take some super glue. I'm going to pop some super glue just on this thread, just to secure that quill. And then I'm going to grab my hackle plier, and in touching turns we're going to wrap this quill up towards the back of that CDC. So you want to be very careful with your first wrap, that you don't pull too tight and snap it. And we're going to do touching turns all the way up. You could, if you wanted, apply some resin over the top of this rather than super glue, but I do much prefer the way the quills look on these without the resin. So we're going to get up to that feather, we're going to come underneath with a thread, and we're going to make sure that's all nicely securely tied in. And then we can cut our butt away. Right. So then the next thing we're going to do is counterspin a thread to open it, to flatten it, because we're going to split this now. So that's the thread split. I'm going to take a little bit more wax, just put a tiny bit on. And then I'm going to grab some fox squirrel from our dubbing dispenser. You don't want too much of this, but you do need to sort of cover the thorax with it. So I'm just going to place some of these fibres in this split thread. A little bit more. That should do us. So I'm going to close the split and just work these up and just get an even spread. And then I'm going to clockwise spin my thread and then let go, and that'll spin all those fibres up. I'm going to get a dubbing brush and just work the loose fibres free. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap and pull those fibres back as we wrap. And then we're going to come in front with a couple of wraps. I'm going to grab some more tying wax. I don't rarely put varnish on my dries. Just a bit of tying wax and a double whip finish. So pull the feathers back, and 1, 2, 3. And then another one for extra security. 1, 2, 3. Pull that tight. So there we are, that's pretty much the finished fly. So I'm just going to take some of these longer fibres out that have got caught in. You know, I like that bugginess to mimic the legs. If you feel you've got just a bit too much, you can prune some of those out. You know, don't be afraid of taking some tweezers and just working some of those fibres out if you feel you've got too many. You know, just want to be happy with the fly. So I'm pretty happy with that now. So that's the finished fly. I hope you've enjoyed it.